My guest today is Christopher Hildebrand, and he's the founder of two companies, Furnaby and Tectonics. They're based in Richmond, Virginia. They have a 20,000 square foot facility there. Anyway, but Christopher, we started at the beginning, and Christopher was a very, very curious child. As a matter of fact, he took apart and put back together his father's turntable a number of times. He had Boston acoustic speakers and an Onkyo integrated amplifier. And anyway, he is one of us. But the reason I really wanted to do this interview with Christopher is that he represents the next wave of audio companies, of entrepreneurs, because he doesn't just make a product, which he does. He makes furniture and speakers and a turntable with Furnaby. But his other company, Tectonics, he makes parts for other companies like Linear Tube Audio and Devore Fidelity. But I don't want to give the whole thing away. But anyway, Christopher's a really interesting guy, and I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did making it.
Maybe I should tell you what my hi-fi was as a 12-year-old.
Yes,
and
please do.
What I grew up with in my family, and it certainly wasn't what I would consider hi-fi. We grew up with music in our house. My dad had KLH 17s that were mounted up in the bookshelves horizontally, and they had millwork built to house the turntable and the Technics stereo system that they had. It wasn't fancy stuff, but it was not cheap either for our household. And my parents loved music, and I was just raised with music on in the house all the time. But at the same time, my mom and dad didn't really want to see the stereo as its own kind of like center stage actor. It was part of the integration in our life. And then I started listening to music. I'm the youngest. I have two older sisters, and they all were listening to music. So I was learning about music from my sisters, and I wanted a system. And of course, the system was probably as important as the music to me, and the music was the only thing that was important to them.
That's good.
I got myself some Boston acoustic speakers, and I bought an Onkyo system of separates, integrated amp, CD player, and tape decks. And I was making mixtapes. We made mixtapes from my dad's record player and tape deck. And then when CDs started coming out and I got a CD player, I thought that was really cool because it gave you control to make your own editor, your own curator of your soundtrack in your life, So very Gen X thing, was making your soundtrack on your mixtape, and then you get your car and you drive around with your soundtrack.
Sounds perfect to me.
I think in a lot of ways it was, So I had that stereo system all the way through after college, and then I think I blew out my Boston acoustic speakers, and I got some other speakers that I was traveling a lot. I went to Italy. I started kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do professionally, and that was right about the time that MP3s came out. And this is going to sound really strange, but that was when my system started meaning as much to me. And I was, because I was more mobile and trying to figure out where I was living, like, schlepping around a hi-fi with trying to figure out where I was going to be was a little bit more difficult. So mobility and convenience was important. And then I started Tectonics when I was 27 and moved down to Richmond from Connecticut. And I just got so immersed in trying to figure out how to run this company that I actually am kind of sad to say I stopped listening to music.
Yeah, life intervenes. Yeah. It happens.
Yeah, and I actually, it's like almost like a cliche at this point, but I think that I also blame the quality of MP3s and the convenience and the the kind of the lack of effort. Perception of quality of sound is this really weird, difficult thing to track and remember
Yes.
and compare. So convenience is a very powerful factor in judgment.
All right. So what kind of system do you have now at home? I assume a lot of your own stuff, but
Um,
is it all your things that you've made or made for other people?
well, I have a turntable that's like a non-product. It's a turntable that I put an Ortofon tone arm on because I wanted to experience an SPU.
Uh-huh.
And I have quad 57s at home, and I integrate them with a dipole sub that I built,
Uh-huh.
and I run that with some LTA gear, um, and then I also swap those out for some of my Raven 2 speakers with the sub, and
Okay.
I put that with a 300B that I got from Chris Tomavigo. That's a concert fidelity integrated.
Hmm.
And that's a really great pairing right there. I like that a lot.
Hmm.
But the turntable is fun because it's kind of a little bit Frankensteinian. It's just something that I get to enjoy. That's not a product. Um, I really want my home experience to be something that gives me an appreciation and reference for the things that have been designed and built out there in the past or by others. That helps frame the context for the work that I do. So it
Yeah.
does,
I would be disappointed if you didn't do that.
I think it would be pretty much just I don't know. I can't. I'm not really that self-absorbed. I hope
Okay.
when I made my wife's wedding ring. I'm a trained jeweler, but when I got my wedding ring, I bought one off of the internet, and
Really? Whoa.
I wanted a platinum ring, and I didn't want to make my own ring. But making Sarah's ring was important to me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. So but you did tell me earlier, right, that you took apart your father's Technics turntable when you were 10 or 12 or something?
Multiple times, yeah.
Multiple times. To find out how it worked? Why were you doing that?
Yeah. I mean, it was just I think I took apart everything. 85% of the time it went back together.
Oh, that's good. That's a high. I don't think I got anywhere near that. I would say 15% of the time I was getting it back together when I was doing that. But I didn't turn out to be a maker of anything.
Well, that's kind of that's where my kind of kinetic, what I was talking about musicians having like the piece that makes them click is the kind of understanding how to translate their kind of tune writing and music making into their hands and an instrument. And for me, it was this fascination with mechanical things. How do things work? Deconstructing things in my mind, doing it with my hands, trying to figure out how to put it back together. We had a shop in the garage, and my dad had me working with him, building things around the house as early as being 7 or 8.
Wow,
So
that's good. It all worked out. Did you ever almost electrocute yourself?
I'm pretty sure I
Get
did
nasty shocks at least.
and I tried to drill holes in my leg once, and all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
Luckily, you didn't succeed though.
Yeah, I still have all my hands.
Okay, good to know.
Getting to the point in your life where you're thinking about all the consequences. I think I was probably in my mid-20s by the time I was really ready to try to take care of other people.
Good. You made the right choice. Good.
So
One of the things you also said recently is you have, and I'm going to mangle what it is that you were describing, but you have like a 7-axis lathe.
yeah, we have 10 CNC machines in the shop now. This new one is it's called a 7-axis turning center. It's 2 spindles. It's basically 2 lathes that face each other, and the bar feeder feeds the material into the first turning center, and it starts doing all the work on the first operations on the first side, and it does milling and turning. And then the second spindle can come in and grab the part, pulls it out, and then it parts it off, and then it separates the part, and it starts doing turning and milling on the back side of the part while the first one starts making the first operation again. And then it drops the part in, and then it moves out, and then it goes into what's called a parts accumulator. So this kind of machine is about making small complex parts like connectors or speaker terminals, or things that are really difficult to make because they have operations on both sides. They're complex because they have milling and turning on them. And usually when they have to go from one turning center to another or to a mill, you have to have all that time in logistics to sort them out, box them up, bring them over to the other machine, set up the other machine, and manufacture the other side. This machine, because it's doing the work simultaneously and it's eliminating the work of the person in the middle,
Okay.
it actually cuts the time in almost 2.5 or 3. So it's the only way that I could actually get to the point where we would be competitive with making something or having somebody buy something from China. And to do that, we had to buy a $250,000 machine. And so we're one of the very few hi-fi manufacturers that makes things from raw material into finished product. So
Wow, that's impressive and cool. Very, very cool. Let's talk a bit about Furnaby's products. I mean, starting with the turntable. So I guess your own turntable, your Furnaby turntables come from your experiments of when you were taking that Technics part and putting it back together again. The lessons learned.
I would say that might be a stretch to say that it was born from that experience. My job really evolved over the years from being in the shop making things to building spreadsheets and staring at a computer and calling people and talking to vendors and managing and having a project that gets me back into making something for myself was about giving myself something to do that had to do with why I got into this in the first place. Okay. So I do this as Furnaby is my second company. It is what I started making furniture, and I made the cube speakers, which I'm discontinuing. And I started making a turntable because that seemed like fun. And at first, I thought it was just going to be something that would draw attention to the furniture. To be honest, it was fun.
Wow.
it was something that I thought was just really cool to pursue, and then I got hooked on it. And that was when I realized that I wasn't listening to music anymore, and I realized that I hated the quality of all the playback in my MP3 collection, and all of my CDs seemed kind of trashed by that point, and I didn't have a system, and I had to start putting this all back together from scratch. And so I can relate to the idea that it was like it would take several years to get it right and then go do something. I didn't actually try to get a review, or when I first started in this, I had a lot of people saying, "This is great, I want to be your dealer." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. I'm not ready to have somebody have the product speak for itself and make you money, and like, like it's a bespoke product right now, which means that I have to be there to basically work through the bugs and deal with that. And my early clients were just really gracious, supportive. They were patrons. I didn't sell a lot of them, and I didn't care. I was doing it because I loved it, and the people that were buying it were enjoying the experience of working with me on it.
What about the speakers?
So widebanders and full range drivers were really fascinating to me. Part of it was when I started, I was like, well, this seems like a pretty straightforward place to start. I don't have to really concentrate on learning how to make a crossover really well. I wanted to make something that was fun and convenient and sounded good and was straightforward. And so I really liked that. And then I made a two-way, which was the beam speakers, and they were milled out of Hartbein beams from an old factory building. And my first experience with product development was really designing something that was impossible to reproduce without an enormous waste factor and a total loss of money, because I had to.
You are a businessman.
Well, so I designed something and it came together very well the first time. It was like I had a resource. I was like, I'm going to make these speakers. I need some blanks to hog out the inside, and they need to come together, and I'm going to glue them together. It was a monocoque design. So, and they gave me something, and it was great. And it glued together, and it was beautiful. It got picked up on Uncrate and Dwell and all of these places. And then I tried to reproduce it, and I bought $8,000 worth of beam, and I had it ripped to the sizes, and I had like a 75% waste factor. And when you're nobody in the speaker business, and you've got a total loss in terms of your manufacturing bill of materials, it doesn't really help you succeed.
Yeah.
So I went from this very selfish artistic design process, and then I realized that I needed to really think about the reproducibility of the design and how to kind of get there. I have a lot of MDF in my life. I hate it.
It's a great lie.
Disgusting material. It's not made in as bad a way as it used to be, which was basically formaldehyde soaked sawdust. But it's still kind of nasty material, and it also doesn't have great structural integrity, except as a sheathing material. And usually, as a designer and a craftsman, I like materials that are I like designs that are honest with their presentation of materials and joinery. So I like solid wood construction for the cabinet, and figuring out how to do that where it doesn't tear itself apart. You just have to be very thoughtful about it, and the baffles can't really be made with solid wood unless they're floating panels like a door, and that rattles. So using an engineered material like Richlite meant that the baffle wouldn't expand and contract and then tear apart the wood surround. And the solid wood frame can expand and contract without tearing apart the faces, because they're
Wow.
not coupled. So any good piece of craft really thinks about how different materials interact, how you're going to join them together, how you're going to accommodate their growth or shrinking, their expansion and contraction in different environments, heat and cold, things like that. That's really what the company that I've been running for the last 18 years specializes in.
Wow. Wow. I love the way you just put that. That was fantastic.
So our company really is all about helping people develop products that go together well and serve their business or their
Well, that's a good segue to LTA. So how did that come about? Linear tube audio.
Um, so Gary Gill from Capital Audio Fest said, "Hey, uh, I'm going to have a room that I have my horn speakers in, and these great guys that make David Burning's amps are going to be there, and they need a turntable." And I was like, "Okay, sure, no problem." Gary's a friend of mine, and so I brought them a turntable. I set it up, and I left. And they had this huge room, and they had Gary's speakers, and they had a good show. And afterwards, they called me up and told me that they wanted me to make parts for them. And where I was right then was, for me, I was there to, at that point, sell Furnaby's products. That's after being a contract manufacturer for 15 years, serving other people's interests. I was trying to make my own. And, I was like, well, I don't really do competitive manufacturing for other people. What do you want to do? And they told me, they said they had this design. They wanted to elevate what they were doing, and they wanted me to design and manufacture their parts for them, their chassis. That was really at the point where I was thinking about more than just making my speakers or making my products and selling them to other people, selling just the product. And it was when I discovered how complicated it is to sell singular products into the hi-fi world, because everybody's products are so wildly different that they don't necessarily work well together. Or with everything, they're not all cross compatible. And so then you start figuring out, well, how do you sell your stuff if you can't get somebody to say that your stuff goes really well with this stuff? And I started wanting to sell systems. I wanted to be able to provide amplifiers and have speakers and have my turntable and be able to sell complete systems to people. But I'm not an electronics engineer. It's always kind of felt esoteric and a little bit beyond my mechanical hammer and tongs mentality. So it kind of felt like a really good opportunity to help them with the industrial design of their products and then manufacture parts for them. And it was good for Tectonics, and it gave me a product to fill part of the puzzle. Great experience. We've developed almost, I think, 7 or 8 different products with them, and they've been very successful, and that success has fed work to the shop at Tectonics, and the machining work is a big part of what we do for them. And then Furnaby sells the amplifiers to our clients too. So it's been that really started to kind of shape how I really saw Furnaby unfolding and developing and evolving, is becoming a dealer that manufactures some of our products as opposed to a manufacturer that sells direct to consumers. It's been fascinating for me to evolve from being a craftsman to leading a team, selling manufacturing services to contractors and things like that, and then really learning how to be a product developer, and then evolving fully into a vertical retail kind of role. It's like, I just found that most of the people that would call me because they wanted a turntable, but then they would ask me, well, who should I talk to about an amplifier? Who should I talk to about a speaker? Who should I, I've got to go track down all of these other people. And I was like, well, I can help you with it. And what I found is that, probably more than 50% of my clients are non-audiophiles. And then I have audiophile clients who like what I'm doing, so I have feet in both worlds, but people by and large want, I believe they want something that's not really as easy to get access to anymore, which is a relationship with somebody that can help curate and guide them through putting together a system for them.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah.
That's been really satisfying to me. It also means that like, I don't have to be the author of every single piece that I sell. I just have to love it and enjoy working with the people that make it.
I think we're good.
All right.
I think we've done it.
Thanks to Christopher for taking the time to shoot the Zoom with me. I think we had a lot of fun together. If you like these sorts of interviews, Zoom and actual human interviews, I have a playlist loaded with them, and there's the link to the playlist. But there you'll find Dan D'Agostino from Krell, formerly of Krell, and Mark O'Brien from Rogue, and John Grado from Grado, and Matt Weisfeld from VPI. Many, many audio luminaries have graced this channel, and I thank each and every one of them for doing so. But anyway, we got playlists for speaker reviews and headphone reviews and electronics reviews and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're all here for your viewing pleasure. So thanks again for watching, and I really hope to see you guys back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.